Hallo Leute, ich bin Vitor, ich komme aus Brasil und ihr seht Deutsch für euch.
Before we start today, I just want to mention once again that if you haven't seen any of my content on verbal prefixes so far, you might find it interesting to check out the playlist that's linked on the little I in the top right corner right now, where you will find an introduction to the topic as well as this video series and some more general linguistic information on prefixes, both in the first video I ever did on specific prefixes, which should be an and auf, if I remember correctly, the first one, as well as in the first episode on inseparable prefixes, which was be. With that, let's get into another inseparable prefix, hinter. This one will be a lot quicker and a lot easier to explain for me than many of the other inseparable prefixes because, first of all, there's a lot less words that can be combined with it, and secondly, its meaning is a lot less vague than in many other cases. But before I get into that, let's look at some examples. Jemanden hintergehen. To deceive or betray somebody. Jemanden hintergehen. Ich fühle mich von dir hintergangen. I feel betrayed by you. Etwas hinterlassen. To leave something behind, although this is usually said in the sense of leaving something when you die or leave for good, something like that. So that's why it's usually combined with two objects. So jemandem etwas hinterlassen. Jemandem etwas hinterlassen. Meine Mutter hat mir nur diesen Ring hinterlassen. My mother left me with nothing but this ring. Or my mother left me nothing but this ring. So the implication here usually would be that she died, although she could have also just left permanently. Etwas hinterlegen. To deposit something. Etwas hinterlegen. Can also be used with a Dativobjekt. Jemandem etwas hinterlegen. Ich habe dir etwas Geld hinterlegt, damit du ein Kapital hast. I have deposited or put away some money for you, so you would have some capital. Hinterhalten does not exist as a verb, but we have a noun that seems like it would come from this verb, that being der Hinterhalt, which means ambush. And the same goes for the non-verb hinterbleiben, which doesn't exist, but there is a noun that exists called die Hinterbliebenen, or der Hinterbliebene, die Hinterbliebene, which means those who are left within a family after somebody in that family died. That doesn't need to mean that it's, there's few who are left. It just means that somebody left or died, usually, most often died, and some people stayed behind. And those are Hinterbliebene. So to give you a somewhat morbid example, I could say, meine ganze Familie ist tot, ich bin der einzige Hinterbliebene. My whole family is dead, I'm the only one that's left. Jemanden oder etwas hinterfragen. To scrutinize or to seriously question something or somebody. Diese Behauptung muss ich doch sehr hinterfragen. I really have to scrutinize this claim. Etwas hinterziehen. To appropriate something. Now this one you will encounter very, very rarely as a more vague term, so meaning applied to anything but Steuern, so taxes, because Steuern hinterziehen is a very common crime among people of a certain, income group. So Steuern hinterziehen means to evade taxation. Now you will have noticed that the list I've given you here is very, very short. While the list that I will share with my Patreon supporters is a bit longer, still this is almost exhaustive of all there is to hinter. It certainly covers all the words that you will definitely encounter. So that is one thing to note up top. Hinter is both very rare and not productive. So that means there are no new words or no new verbs being put out with this one. Part of the reason for that is because hinter is one of the very rare inseparable prefixes that actually has a distinct meaning even when it's not connected to a verb. And I'm sure many of you have already recognized it because it's a very common word. Hinter means behind. Not you're behind, as in bottom or ass or however you want to call it, although the word for that is also very close. It's Hintern, der Hintern. However, not to get distracted and to elaborate on hinter a bit more, for example, if something is behind the couch, it would be hinter dem Sofa. And of course, you could also use it with Akkusativ, namely when you're using it with a motion instead of a state. So if I'm putting something behind the couch, I would be putting it hinter das Sofa. And because this meaning is so distinct, verbs that are connected to it always mean something along the lines of behind. It may not always be literal, but it's still very recognizable in the verbs where it isn't. One example for this would be that while hinterfragen doesn't describe a process or a state where something is behind or going behind something else, I think the thought of asking behind something is very intuitive to everybody. You even say it in English when you say that you are trying to get behind something, which is essentially what you try to do when you scrutinize something. So that's really all there is to this one. Nice to have a less vague one among these for once, huh? I'm certainly relieved. And that's it for today. Now, as always, if you want to get the full list of verbs that can be combined with hinter, as well as all other prefixed verbs lists, that's always a mouthful to say, and all grammar scripts of the past and the future of DFE, you can head on over to Patreon. It's always linked in the description, and support me on there with whatever amount you want, and I will add you to the DropBox folder with said scripts either at the start of next month or whenever your first pledge goes through. And lastly, your random word of the week is die Beule. Die Beule. Not to be confused with die Delle, which is this. Die Beule is this. Bup, 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 Beule, Delle. 2 words. Bis dann. Tschüss.